Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing today? How y'all doing today? Yeah? Okay, welcome to our first ever TEDxUKY event. I am Maya Barber.
And I am Najaya Claiborne.
And we are your hosts for today's event. So first things first, let's go over some house rules. Number 1, please silence all of your cell phones. Please no videos or flash photography. Please refrain from entering and exiting during our talks. And then in case of an emergency, please exit through the doors to your left and go directly outside. The restrooms and ballroom B can be accessed through those doors as well. Applause are welcome before and after each talk. And then lastly, if you need anything, you can find someone with a red badge on and they can help you.
All right, guys, I'm also going to ask you, how are you all doing this morning? Good. I need a little bit more energy. How are you all doing this morning? Good. Well, we are so excited that you all are here. Now I will go over the event today. I will go over the run of the event today. So first, we will have 4 speakers with a short 5-minute conversation break between each speaker. Then after our 4th speaker, we will transition into a buffet-style lunch in Ballroom B. There will also be music, tabling, and a game to play with those at your table. After lunch, we will meet back here for our 2nd session with 3 speakers. And then finally, we will have some time afterwards with live music to connect with speakers and other attendees. Feel free to stick around after the event to meet new faces within our TEDxUKY community.
We would also like to give a special thank you to our sponsors, Lewis Honors College, the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Communication and Information, the College of Nursing, and the UK Alumni Association. And of course, thank you to everyone here for supporting this innovation within our community and being a part of making the first TEDxUKY possible. Our theme for today is trailblazing. We have gathered 7 trailblazers who have forged their paths in their respective fields and are willing to share their stories with us.
And now for our first speaker, introducing ATB. The artist ATB is the visionary behind Sold, a lifelong project that merges visual and performance arts in a continually evolving story. Embracing a meta-modern perspective, ATB redefines the boundaries of art by using the passage of time and context as his creative mediums. Known for his provocative installations, his work has captured media attention and can be explored at his website, which can be found in your programs. Please welcome the artist ATB.
Thank you so much. That was great. I want to show you something, but don't get too excited. It's just an ordinary paper bowl. In fact, its meaning and value are so insignificant. It's actually worth more in the trash than in my hand. But had that been one of over 150 paper bowls that make up work number 88 by the contemporary artist Martin Creed, Well, that would have just been a massive error in judgment, because those paper bowls, residing in the context of prestigious galleries, museums, and private collections around the world, well, they can range in value from anywhere between a few hundred to a few $1,000s. And yet that's nothing compared to Rabbit, a 3-foot stainless steel mirror-finished sculpture inflatable bunny. Jeff Koons produced the work in an edition of 3, one of which set the record in 2019 for the highest price ever paid at auction for a living artist's work. $91.1 million. Now let's put this number into context, all right? Taylor Swift's 11,000 square foot Beverly Hills Goldwyn estate, which, sidebar, was built by Samuel Goldwyn, that's the G in MGM Films. Zillow has that property valued at a third of Rabbit's, $30.6 million. But this isn't just about art. It's about life and how we create meaning and value within this absurdly brief window of time. I'm the artist ATB, but I haven't always been. Before I became the creator of a singular lifelong work of art called Sold, I was just Adam Taylor Brown. That all changed on June 20th, 2021. It was my birthday. Also, Father's Day, which is a little synchronicity that happens once, maybe twice a decade. That year, I turned 36. It was the first time that I fully came to grips with the fact that sooner or later, I was going to die. For you to understand why, though, I need to give you a little bit more context. I have to take you back to 1993. Because 1993 is the first time that Father's Day and my birthday shared a date on the calendar. I was turning 8, and my dad and I had planned an entire weekend together with my mom, beginning with a Friday afternoon swim at a neighbor's pool. When we got there, though, I realized I'd forgotten my goggles. So my dad goes back to get them, and when he returns, I'm standing on the diving board. And it's from this vantage point that I watch him jog up along the side of the pool, pull off his shirt, and dive in to swim my goggles to me. That's about how long it was before I watched his body float to the surface, face down, motionless. He was instantly and permanently paralyzed. The prognosis was pretty bleak. The doctors said he would be a full quadriplegic for the rest of his life, which they generously estimated would be up to about 10 years. He was only 36. Now, for those of you who have yet to have your own existential encounter with mortality, here's what happens at a practical level. You become an accountant. You take stock of the value of your time, that which you have already spent and that which you might have left to spend. Now, I've been spending mine in service of other people's ambitions as a brand strategist and designer, but believe me when I tell you, this was not the original plan. I had grown up preparing for a life in the arts. I even had a brief stint at a theater school in London before jettisoning it all in exchange for that siren song of adulthood. Job stability. So, that's why when I turned 36, I made what can only be characterized as a brazenly unhinged decision. I was finally going to be an artist. But I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. It would take me another 2 years to figure out what my voice was, and more importantly, my medium. During that time, I met with inhabitants of the art world. I read dozens of books. I listened to hundreds of podcasts and probably watched just as many hours of video. If I had to distill everything I learned down into a single idea, it would be this. The art world is a contextual playground completely untethered from reality. It's an intersubjective network in which success isn't really predicated on talent, so much as something else. And I want to show you what that something else is, if you'll indulge me. In fact, I'd like to take you on a brief history tour back through time as we take a look at a few seminal moments in art, beginning with 1991. Advertising legend Charles Saatchi has just given the young British artist Damien Hirst carte blanche to create whatever his heart desires. So naturally, he commissions an Australian fisherman to catch a tiger shark for 6,000 pounds, which he then submerges into a tank of 4,360 gallons of formaldehyde. Now, Saatchi is going to end up selling this shark for a reported $12 million about 13 years later. And at the time, that will be the highest price ever paid for a living artist's work, save for Jasper Johns. But, and I cannot stress this enough, it's just a shark. In fact, it's not even the original. The first one decayed beyond repair and had to be replaced. But, with a title like The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something even more. Next stop, 1962. Andy Warhol, a commercial artist turned fine artist, has just shown his 32 paintings of Campbell's soup cans in his first one-man gallery exhibition. Now, Andy's career is going to be defined by breaking convention, right? Whether it's his interpolation of everyday products into fine art or the mass production of his own artwork, literally everything this man touches is going to be imbued with his cult of celebrity, and not just in the art world, but in the world at large as well. 1917. Ladies and gentlemen, the most over-discussed work of art in the history of talking about art. It's Marcel Duchamp's porcelain urinal titled Fountain. He submits the work to the inaugural exhibition of the Society of Independent Artists, but we don't get to see it because it's never placed in the viewing area, based on the assessment by the jury that it doesn't actually qualify as real art. Later on, Duchamp will describe this concept of ready-mades. He will say they are everyday objects raised to the dignity of a work of art by the artist's act of choice. We finally made it to the 1800s. Now, everyone in here is gonna recognize a few of the following names: Pissarro, Sicily, Renoir, Degas, Cézanne, Manet, Monet. That's because these 7 guys represent the core of the French Impressionist canon, but I would wager there are not many people in this room right now who will recognize the following French Impressionist, Gustave Caillebotte. Now, Caillebotte is not only an artist, he's also a collector of the Impressionists. These are his friends and contemporaries at a time when the art establishment roundly rejects their aesthetics. Unfortunately, he's going to die of a stroke at the age of 46 in 1894. But not before willing his art collection to the French state, stipulating its exhibition at the Musée du Luxembourg in Paris. It is a bold and presumptuous move that, as you might imagine, does not go over particularly well. It's going to take the state a few years before it finally relents, but once it does, people are going to flock to see what all the fuss is about. Turns out the 7 most famous French Impressionists owe their success not just to their dreamy aesthetics, but to the single posthumous bequest of a man who literally platformed them into the annals of art history. Now, this lady needs no introduction. Da Vinci's Mona Lisa has been regarded as a great work of art since before it was even finished in 1503. But it's not the most famous or the most valuable work in the Louvre, let alone the world, until August 21st, 1911. That's the day the Mona Lisa is stolen. And as the news media propagates its image around the world, people literally begin to queue up to get a look at the space on the wall where the painting once hung. The thief is Vincenzo Peruggia. He's an Italian immigrant to France and a maintenance worker at the Louvre. He and a couple co-conspirators remove the painting from the wall, hide in a closet overnight, and then abscond with it under a smock the next morning as patrons fill the gallery. Now, upon its return, a couple years later, The world has become irreversibly obsessed with the Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile. Or, if we're being honest and willing to pull back a little bit, the international art heist that made her smile inescapable. Do you see it yet? Because if you're looking too closely at the art objects, you are missing out on so much of the art. More than art's mediums and materials, its actual meaning and value is the product of its context. Same is true for artists, by the way. I figured out pretty quickly I did not fit the art world's conventional context. I was the wrong age, in the wrong city, I had the wrong degree, and most importantly, I had the wrong connections. I could do everything by the book, and I was still going to fail as an artist. So I decided I would take a page from my own. I decided I would create my own context, which is something that my father had figured out 30 years earlier. Sometime after his accident in 1993, my dad would tell me a story about his first few days at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. This was right after his head had literally been bolted inside a stabilizing halo, and he was attached to a ventilator. Unable to speak or move, he did the only thing he could. He prayed. He prayed for death. If this is all that life had left for him, then he didn't want to live it anymore. And then he says he thought of me. He thought of his 8-year-old son, and he wondered, what if he actually could get the next 10 years? He'd be able to finish raising me, get me through high school, off to college, and on my way to adulthood. My dad took his remaining life as a fully dependent, wheelchair-bound quadriplegic. Recontextualized it and found a reason to live where seconds earlier there had been none. That's how he did it. That's how he created meaning and value in his life. Context. It's how I would create meaning and value in my art 30 years later. Context. I've made context itself the medium. And for us, there is no greater context than time. That's the thesis behind Sold, my lifelong time-based work of art. Sold's primary context is how it comes into and leaves the world. It's released in waves of 12 identical prints. Each time one sells, the next one doubles in value, right? So the first work in any wave is only valued at a few dollars, but the 12th can soar into the 5 and eventually 6 figures. But, and this is the most important part, they're only available for 12 days. Any work that doesn't sell within that window must be destroyed in the recorded performance of a wake. Like us, these waves die, many before ever having reached their potential. That's why the first work sold in every wave receives a birthmark, the 12th a life mark, and in the event not every work sells, the last work to have sold receives a death mark. So, what's more valuable? Is it a work from a wave in which the 12th sold for thousands of dollars? Or is it a work from a wave cut dramatically short, making the remaining works more rare? Is it more valuable to have acquired a work early in the wave when it was more affordable but under much, much higher demand? Or a work from later in the wave which was far more expensive but never promised? What if the art is installed in an abandoned downtown Starbucks? What if the art creates a media controversy for its use of AI image generation? What if all 12 works from the wave are installed in a luxury Airbnb, costing guests over $1,000 a night just to see it? but proceeds from that wave go to benefit homelessness intervention. What if the wave becomes a platform for the construction of a real-life time machine? Because that's what happened with Wave 7, Take Your Time. I built the ION, a temporal perception device that literally takes your time and opens a series of windows such that you can observe and interact with your immediate past selves. I told you at the beginning, this wasn't just about art. What I didn't tell you is that it's been the art the whole time. Is this paper ball still a piece of trash? Maybe it's something else now. Maybe it's something even more. Because over the last few minutes, it's become the subject of a wave that won't open for 36 months from this very day at this very moment. It's called the Prestige. Now, my dad, he pulled off one hell of a magic trick. He took the 10 years the doctors gave him, and he invested those in the people closest to him. He found a way eventually to take care of us. And in return, he got 12 more than he was due. Philip Herman Brown passed away in 2015, a whole 22 years after his tragic accident. For us, there is no greater context than time. It's a finite window with an indefinite end. And we say we spend our time, but time is not a currency. The accounting is a paradox. When we spend our wealth, our balance is less. But with time, the more we spend, the more valuable our remainder becomes. I'm the artist ATB. This, and this, all of this is sold. Thank you.
Wow. We want to say thank you, ATB, for sharing your experience with us. It was amazing. Now we will take a 5-minute break before our next speaker. So take this moment to drink some water, get up, talk a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next section.
back. Oh, there it is. All right. So now for our next speaker, we will have Shannon Sauer-Zavala, who has her PhD degree and is a licensed clinical psychologist and a mental health treatment researcher. At the University of Kentucky, she conducts clinical trial testing with cutting-edge interventions for personality change. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Shannon Sauer-Zavala.
People don't believe me when I tell them I used to be lazy. They think I'm being self-deprecating. They can't square the person I am today, a successful academic, with the kid who cleaned by stuffing everything under the bed, or the high school student who rarely attended math class and consequently had to repeat Algebra 2 the following year. How did I go from Shannon isn't living up to her full potential, a common refrain in my parent-teacher conferences, to an ambitious, inbox zero sort of person? People are also surprised to learn that I used to be shy. When I get up in front of an audience like today, I still sometimes surprise myself. Giving a TED Talk is a far cry from the little girl who rarely raised her hand in class or the teenager who hung back and observed during social situations. I can't pinpoint any major milestone or event that set these changes in motion. Instead, I think adding a new behavior here and there slowly snowballed over time. In fact, I think I gradually shaped the traits I'd need to be successful in the life I wanted, rather than let my personality dictate or limit who I could become. In addition to watching my own personality change over time, I'm also a clinical psychologist with over 15 years of experience helping people reduce barriers to living the lives they want. I've seen the power of personality change firsthand, both personally and professionally, and I'm passionate about sharing this information with others. But let's back up a little bit. Who here has taken a personality test? Let me see a show of hands. All right, so if you're like me, you've consulted BuzzFeed and you know exactly which Taylor Swift song perfectly matches your vibe. Bejeweled. Or maybe you've pored over your zodiac sign to see if your personality is compatible with a new partner. And while it may be easy to dismiss BuzzFeed quizzes and horoscopes as non-scientific, did you know that most commercially available personality tests, the ones used by schools and corporations to funnel us into our ideal roles, are also not backed by science? They don't actually predict career success? Another problem with the most popular approaches to understanding personality is that they assume that traits are static, that you're stuck with the personality you're born with, so you might as well make the best of it. But modern personality science tells us that traits can and do change over time. So what if, instead of using these tests to stay in your lane personality-wise, you imagined the life of your dreams and then intentionally developed the traits that would help get you there? So for instance, if you dream of owning your own clothing boutique someday, it would be helpful to be organized so you can keep better track of your inventory. And science tells us that if you're not an organized person right now, you don't have to give up on that dream, because you can cultivate the characteristic that you'd need for success. So once you've identified the traits that would come in handy in the life you want, you can use the science-backed strategies that I'll share with you today to nudge your own personality in that direction. But before we can talk about personality change, we have to be on the same page about what personality actually is. According to psychologists, your personality is your characteristic way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Do you tend to approach situations in your life pessimistically, or are you more of a glass half full kind of person? Do you get mad when people cut you off in traffic, or are you more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt, like maybe they're on their way to the hospital? Do you plan ahead, or are you more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person? You can think of personality as the label that summarizes your responses to questions like these. Depending on your answers, you might be labeled as optimistic, as empathetic, as reliable. Research suggests that all of these labels that we use to describe ourselves can be summarized by 5 overarching traits, creatively referred to as the Big Five. Psychologists as early as the 1930s literally pored over the dictionary and pulled out any words that described human nature. Then they grouped those words into categories with similar themes. So words like thoughtful, friendly, kind would have been grouped together. They found that thousands of words could again be represented by just 5 overarching traits. Our tendency to experience negative emotions, or neuroticism. Our tendency to be excitable and sociable, also known as extroversion. The degree to which we're conscientious, that is reliable and organized and achievement striving. How well we get along with other people, or our agreeableness. And finally, how open we are to new ideas, experiences, and aesthetics. So, what's the optimal level of each of these traits? The level most associated with health, wealth, and happiness. That's $1 million question, right? Well, it's kind of a trick question because the ideal level of each trait really depends on each individual person's goals and values. Let's take agreeableness as our example trait. Consider the characteristics that would come in handy if you wanted to be an elementary school teacher. Surely it would be helpful to be kind and caring and definitely patient. Now let's think about the school's principal. Of course, it's still important to be kind and caring, but you also have to be assertive. You have to be able to deliver difficult feedback. I like this example because it shows that the characteristics needed for success can actually evolve across one person's career trajectory, going from being the classroom teacher to moving up through the school's leadership. I'm also really pleased to say, on a personal note, that my own agreeableness has decreased across time, and I'm not quite as much of a people pleaser as I used to be. So identifying the optimal level of each trait for you is all well and good, but what's the point if personality is static? Can we change our personality traits? Well, remember that personality is our characteristic way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And while it may seem difficult to change your personality, we change how we think about things, we change how we feel about things, we change our habits or our behaviors all the time. If you start to think, arriving on time shows other people that I respect them, and you feel pride when you show up to brunch before your friends, and you start engaging in behaviors that increase your timeliness, like setting an alarm or an appointment reminder, then you are embodying the characteristics of a reliable person. And if you maintain those changes to your thinking, feeling, and behaving over time, then voila, you are reliable. You've changed your personality. Research supports this notion. On average, as people age, they tend to experience fewer negative emotions and more positive ones. They tend to be more conscientious, they tend to put more value in positive relationships, and they tend to be less judgmental. My own clinical trial research here at UK suggests that we can speed up this process by making intentional tweaks to our thinking and behavior using strategies drawn from cognitive behavioral therapy. Our research shows that we can see meaningful change in personality traits in less than 20 weeks instead of 20 years. And so by now, you're probably thinking, well, how do I do this? It sounds too good to be true. The good news is that cognitive behavioral strategies are relatively simple, and you don't need to enlist the help of a therapist if that's not your thing. The first component is examining patterns in thinking. That's the cognitive piece. You have to be aware of any thoughts you're having that might be keeping you stuck behaving in line with a particular trait. So, for instance, if you tell yourself other people are only looking out for themselves, then you're likely to behave defensively around other people. The behavioral component is examining patterns in action tendencies and trying on different responses. So again, if you behave defensively around other people, they're probably going to respond negatively to you. They're gonna maybe snap back at you, they're gonna withdraw. And that's only gonna further entrench you in the belief that other people can't be trusted. But what if instead you tried out being more open with other people? Maybe you share with a coworker that you're struggling with a task. How might that change how people respond to you? And how might that change your view of other people? Cognitive behavioral strategies are so effective for changing your personality because, again, personality is your characteristic way of thinking and behaving. And so if you change your perspective and you change your habits and you maintain those changes over time, then in essence, you have changed your personality. And you don't have to make all of these changes overnight. In my own life, starting small ignited my journey from messy and lazy to probably off the charts in conscientiousness. So I've already mentioned that I wasn't the strongest student in high school, and that definitely carried over into early college. Not knowing what to major in, what I was doing with my life, I, by chance, enrolled in an Introduction to Psychology course. Despite the 8 a.m. start time, I managed to get myself up and out of bed and to every class meeting. And I was rewarded by performing really well on the first exam. So much so that the teaching assistant pulled me aside and said, "Shannon, you should seriously consider majoring in psychology." That was the push I needed to continue to apply myself in that course, and it really affected how I viewed myself. I'm good at psychology. And so I continued to enroll in psychology classes, and I continued to do well. Now, I must admit that my newfound study skills were very narrowly applied to my psych classes, and I still sporadically attended my other requirements, like 2 semesters of foreign language, biology. And so my performance was pretty haphazard. In my junior year, I was really feeling myself as a budding psychologist. And so I decided that I wanted to go to graduate school and get my PhD in clinical psych. Truly, no one was more surprised than me. We had a speaker come to my high school to talk about her journey becoming a psychologist, and I remember thinking at the time, nah, too much school. But I was becoming more conscientious. So I worked up the nerve to talk to a trusted professor about new ambition, and I was devastated when she told me I probably wouldn't get into graduate school because my overall GPA was too low. Negative emotions are also a powerful motivator. The innate purpose of guilt is to prompt behavior change so that we don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And so motivated to feel better, I started to apply myself consistently across more of my classes. By the time I finally did get into graduate school, the demands increased exponentially. Feeling overwhelmed, I did what anyone would do. I went to Target. And I bought my very first day planner. This was the beginning of a beautiful relationship because I now get these things monogrammed and customized every year. Writing down all my assignments, my meetings, my readings in one place led to this palpable feeling of relief from my overwhelm. Now, anyone who's ever gone to graduate school knows that rewards are few and far between. As a first-generation college student who didn't even know what grad school was 5 years earlier, seeing my name in print at the top of a published article was a really powerful motivator to keep going. In fact, I liked it so much, I've now done it over 100 times. Fast forward to my early years as a professor. For the first time, I was acutely aware that other people were counting on me. The faster I responded to emails and returned edits on research papers, the more prepared my students were for success in their own careers. I started to see myself through their eyes as someone who's competent and organized and productive, and I wanted to live up to those standards. Years later, after I had my daughters, I learned the hard way that if you don't plan ahead for summer camp, they fill up. One season without reliable childcare was enough to learn that it's really hard to concentrate on my Zoom meeting if my kids are playing Lion DJ Dance Party in the next room. That was not a mistake that I was going to make more than once. And so now I literally set an alarm 8 months in advance to sign my kids up for camp. So there's two psychological principles that are important in my journey in personality change. The first is reinforcement, which means a rewarding experience that follows a new behavior, increasing the likelihood that you'll engage in that behavior again. This can be adding something pleasant, like getting an article accepted for publication or feeling pride after a job well done. It can also be taking away something negative, so feeling less stressed after buying a planner. The other principle that's really important for personality change is identity. How we see ourselves has a huge impact on how we behave. If I tell myself I need the adrenaline of the last minute to start studying, you better believe I'm gonna wait till the night before to cram. But if I tell myself I'm a competent go-getter that other people are counting on, I'm at least gonna try to start in advance. And cognitive strategies can help break us free from rigid thinking patterns and be enough to test out a new behavior. And if that behavior is reinforced, then we're likely to continue it. And again, if you're changing your thinking and you're changing your behavior, then you're changing your personality. So, how did a shy, messy people pleaser end up on this stage today? That is the power of personality change. And when I reflect on my personal journey and my research, the process is relatively simple. Not easy, but simple. First, let your dreams dictate the traits you develop, not the other way around. Then, notice if you have any self-limiting beliefs, like, I can't do X activity because I'm not X characteristic enough. Challenge those views of yourself. Notice if you are getting stuck in a particular pattern of behavior. Ask yourself what somebody with the traits you want would do, and try that instead, see what happens. Finally, savor any rewards you get from making these changes. They'll make you feel good, and that'll keep you moving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zavala. That was absolutely wonderful and beautiful. The beautiful and educational talk about personality change. So now we will go into our next 5-minute break. With this one will be a little different because we'll have an activity during this break.
All right, guys. How have you been enjoying the speakers so far? Good, good. All right, so now we will have a small activity before our next speaker. As you might have noticed, we are very passionate about the concept of trailblazing here at TEDxUKY. However, we know that this concept is subject to each one of us. If you could only describe trailblazing in one word, what would it be? Now it's time to share your responses. On the screen behind me, go to any search engine and type in Mentimeter.com. Then use the code on the screen to join our page and talk amongst yourselves while you describe the word trailblazing. All right, you may begin.
And if you need that code, it is 94825701. It's right there at the top of the screen if you can't see it.
Oh, also, you can use the QR code that is right down, located in the left bottom corner. Scan that, and then, yes. All right, guys. So I just want to read a couple of the words that you all have put up on the screen. So a lot of you all said innovation, brave, breakthrough, courageous, resilient. Oh, against the grain, novel, exploring, hustler, pioneer. Right? Wow. So all of these responses are amazing. Let's just start there. And they tell us that there's not only one definition of trailblazing, as it can be whatever you want it to be. All right, let's continue on this journey as we listen to more trailblazing speakers who want to change the world through what they do every way. All right, on to our next speaker. Destin Mazel is a fourth-year counseling psychology PhD candidate from College Park, Georgia. Through the lens of liberation psychology and interdisciplinary collaboration, primary goal as a psychologist is to improve Black Americans' spiritual, physical, and mental well-being while appreciating Black traditions, culture, and history. Destin is the founder of the Dream Big Scholarship, where he fundraised and donated over $18,000 to high school students' collegiate success. Yes, give that a round of applause, $18,000. Additionally, Destin has gained over 95K followers on his social media platforms, which he uses to share information about mental well-being and traveling. In his free time, Destin loves to travel, and he has traveled to 28 countries and 5 continents. Please welcome Destin Mazel.
For those who are comfortable, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And I'm going to say a list of names. I want you to imagine the person that's associated with that name. John, Sarah, Nate, Katie, Jasmine, LeBron, Darnell, LaToya, Lakeisha, Deshawn. You may now open your eyes. Now I want to ask y'all to share, but if we're being honest, we all have different things that we associate with names, and that makes sense because names convey important information about a person's race, ethnicity, nationality, and their family history. However, having your name been identified with a particular group can be challenging due to individual, cultural, and societal biases. Specifically, Black Americans who have Black American names face a unique type of discrimination within America. My name is Destin L. Mazel, and today I'll talk with you about the cultural phenomenon and significance of Black American names. Welcome to my TED Talk. I've always wanted to say that. So, like many people, the first name I learned to spell was Destin, D-E-S-T-I-N. The next name I learned to spell was my mom's name, Farlesia, P-H-A-R-L-E-S-I-A. 9 letters, 4 syllables, Far-Lee-Si-A. Now, I remember in grade school, I've always had terrible handwriting. So when I would miss an assignment, or I would do bad in class, or whatever the case may be, I would get my friends to forge my mom's signature on assignments when I would do bad. And all my friends would always give feedback about my mom's name, saying her name was long, or it was difficult to pronounce. It was ghetto. Now at the time, I didn't really care what they had to say about the name. Listen, as long as they signed the slip or whatever I needed to get me out of trouble, I was okay with that. But I did begin to wonder, what makes a name ghetto, right? Like, what makes black names ghetto? And how can a name even be ghetto? I'm no stranger to hearing that black names are ghetto. I went to a predominantly black high school, and I remember certain students being told not to use their first names on resumes or job applications because their name was ghetto, or they wouldn't be able to receive an opportunity because their name would be perceived as ghetto. Instead, they were recommended to use their middle names if they had white-sounding middle names. And unfortunately, if they didn't have white-sounding middle names, then they might just be out of luck. So instead, they were recommended to use initials or recommended to use acronyms or whatever the case they could use to get this job application. And this is consistent. This advice is pretty consistent with a lot of research studies. There's a couple research studies that shows that if you have a resume with a black name and a white name, the resume with the white name will be way more likely to receive a job opportunity. So if you're anything like me then, you're still wondering, okay, so what is a ghetto name? What makes the name ghetto? Matter of fact, what the hell is ghetto? Because I still don't know. But to answer that question, I did what every other college student in 2024 would do. I asked ChatGPT. Now, according to ChatGPT, referring to someone or something as ghetto can be offensive, derogatory, and it can have its origins in describing areas or neighborhoods with lower socioeconomic status, often associated with race, poverty, crime, and social challenges. However, when applied to an individual, it can perpetuate stereotypes and imply negative judgments about their character, their upbringing, and their lifestyle. So oftentimes, using the word ghetto to describe black names or black American names is a way to discriminate and judge against black Americans who have those names. And it's a reflection of America's troubled history with colonization, racism, and chattel slavery. Oftentimes, when people say that black is ghetto, it often means that black names are not white or not white enough. Now, I don't know what's the obsession with having black names be white names, but I'm gonna give you an example of this popping up on me. So I'm on TikTok, minding my own black business, scrolling, and I come across a video of a person who works in the hiring department of a company, and they share that whenever they see black names, or what they described as ghetto names, they instantly skip over that application. Now, that pissed me off, but it's also discriminatory, and I want to say it's even illegal. But what it did was, it brought out the doctoral candidate in me, and it made me want to go do the research on black names. And what I found was, it was troubling. So the research revealed that black people experience discrimination regarding their names in multiple areas of life that are needed for living: spirituality, mental well-being, education, criminal justice. For example, there's a 2016 study that finds that at the entry point of receiving mental health services, black Americans who have black American names are less likely to receive emails that prompt services. For example, the name Allison, or the white name Allison, is significantly more likely to be invited for services than the name Lakeisha. A 2023 study found that black men who have black American names, like Jamal, receive more punitive punishment sentences for the same crimes as a man with the name John, who had the same crime and done the same things. And this is consistent amongst archival and experimental data. Now, there's more. So wait, there's more. But, and this one is one of the most significant ones. There's even ones that find that dogs who are perceived to have black American names are tied to slower adoption times, and dogs who have white names are tied to faster adoption times. Now, this is troubling because we all know how much people care about dogs. I could write a dissertation about how much people care about dogs. And speaking of dissertations, I'm currently working on mine, and I'm looking into the experiences of black Americans who have black names. And I'm looking into the cultural significance of black American names. Now, I bet y'all can imagine all my family and friends' reaction when I tell them I've been in school for 4 years to talk about names and be an expert on names. And I get their reaction, I get the facial expression, I get it all. But that's because we don't understand the power and intention behind namings. So let's start here. Names are the first gift a person receives. Oftentimes, it can reflect the parents' hopes that they have for the child, or reflect the values that are within the community. And across cultures, names have importance. For example, my good friend Chisom, she is from the Igbo Nigerian tribe. Chisom name means God is with me. When I asked Chisom about the importance of her name, she said that it's a reminder that God is with her, even when times are rough. In Ghanaian culture, they named their children based off the day of the week they were born and their gender assigned at birth. So example, when I visited Ghana, I was gifted with the name Kwabena. Kwabena means born on Tuesday because I was born on Tuesday and I'm a male. I have a friend named Magal. Magal is from the Oromo tribe located in southwest Ethiopia. Magal's name directly translates to he who rides a brown horse and has preferred skin. Now, the color of the horse in this culture matters because the brown horse signifies great stature and great leadership. Magal is named after his 8th grandfather, and his grandfather had a brown horse because he had great stature and leadership. Now, these names are beautiful, and these cultural names have a lot of meaning. And I want to let it be known that these names face their own unique type of discrimination within America. However, they're at least seen as cultural, whereas Black names are seen as sometimes meaningless or careless decisions, or what I named already, ghetto. So what I'll do is I'll list off about 7 popular Black naming practices. We'll outline just a few things that Black people consider when naming our children. Number 1, which is one of my favorite ones, Black parents sometimes combine the names of the parents to create one unique name for the child. For instance, Jonathan gets with Nikki, bam, we got Jonique. Now, this is important because it can signify parents bestowing their best qualities onto their child. Number 2, Black names or Black people, we often use renditions of names that are important of people that are important to our community or to our family. This can be a community leader, or this can be a family member, a friend, or a historical figure. For example, my mentor, she named her first son Langston, and she named her second son Houston. Houston spelled Hugheston. These names together are an ode to the poet Langston Hughes, who is a Black American giant, has done tremendous things for our community and for Black American art. Number 3, Black people often name our children Western names with a slightly different spelling. So I have a friend named Savannah. Savannah spells her name with a J. When I asked Savannah about the importance of her name, she says that she is the first and last Savannah that most people will meet that spells their name with a J. She shares that her name is unique and she never met anyone that spells her name in that way, and she likes it that way. And it often starts a lot of conversations surrounding her name. Number 4, Black names have been a battleground for socio-cultural and political consciousness. So often Black names reflect the soul and spirit of our ancestors and our fight against oppression. So you have names like Asada. Asada means she who struggles or she who fights for what she believes in. Number 5, Black names often tell stories. For example, a family who struggled at birth might name their child a miracle because their child is a miracle. Or they might name their child my angel because their child is their angel. Black names also can be prophetic. So thinking about the metaphysical and spiritual aspect that goes into naming. Let's consider Beyonce. Beyonce's name directly translates to beyond others. Now, I don't think it's by mistake or by coincidence that Beyonce is one of the greatest singers and performers in the world. That's the prophecy behind the name maybe in play. My name is destined. I've been told my whole life that I'm destined for greatness. It's prophecy as well. Number 6, Black names are often reflect the values that are core and essential to Black culture. For example, Justice, a name that's popular within the Black community. Names like Serenity, Joy sometimes spelled with an I, Love, are all names that are popular in our community, but also reflective of the values that we hold near and dear to us. Number 7, Black names have origins in a bunch of different cultures. And that can be reflective of Black Americans' journey throughout America and throughout the world. So example, the name Aaliyah has Arabic origins. The name Leroy has French origins. The name Amani has Swahili origins. The name Tyrone has Irish origins. I wonder if Erykah Badu knew that when she was making her song. So I listed off about 7 different Black naming practices, but there's a bunch more. Like, I didn't even get into the importance of apostrophes when it comes to Black namings. But I want to make it clear that Black people don't have to follow guidelines when naming their children. Sometimes Black people might just pick a name for their children because they felt the name was cute, or they liked the way the name sounded. And that doesn't take away the importance that name has to the family or the person who yields that name, nor does it diminish the level of respect that name deserves. Now, I know it's difficult having a Black name at times due to some of the research I listed off and some of the ways that Black people have been discriminated against. However, I would argue that the answer to solving Black name stigma is not to stop naming children Black names, but instead to challenge the world that makes us view Black names as something that's negative, or what I mentioned already, as ghetto. Before we can truly understand and appreciate Black names, we must decenter the white gaze and center our understanding of Black culture and Black joy. See, we know that Black people have a rhythm and flow with how we engage with the world and the people of the world. So of course, Black names will embody that. We know that Black culture is creative, rich in history. So we know that Black names will reflect that. We know that Black people value the soul and spirit of our ancestors, the joy in our communities, and the liberation within our belief systems. So of course, Black names will echo that. We know that Black people are not white people. So of course, Black names will not be white names. Now, it's important that y'all don't leave this TED Talk and think, okay, well, cool, I get it. Black names are different, cool. That's not the takeaway point. Black names are not different. Black names are. To think that a Black name is different means that there is a normal, and there is no normal. So the next time you see a student, a mother, a job applicant, a friend, I want you to intentionally shift your mind when they have a Black name about what their name means and what their name means to their culture and their family. The next time you see a Black person with a Black name and you believe their name is too difficult to pronounce, I want you to remind yourself that you never had any difficulty pronouncing Schwarzenegger or Leonardo or Michelangelo. So you definitely can pronounce LaToya, Trayvon, and Quavon. The next time you hear a joke about a Black name, like Shanae or Watermelon Drea, I want you to remind yourself that you may be upholding problematic stereotypes about a culture or a person who has that name. The next time that you begin to believe that a Black name is fictitious and is made up and they just threw some stuff together, I want you to remind yourself that, well, all things were created. Food, language, fashion, culture, names, even you once had a start. The next time that you believe that a Black person, that a Farlesia doesn't deserve an opportunity because of their names, I want you to ask yourself, who told you that? Who told you that this person doesn't deserve an opportunity because of the way you see their names? It's important that we begin to reframe our minds to understand that Black names matter. Black names are the pedigree of our identity. They're the commencement of our history and the manifestation of our creativity. My name is Destin Lamonte Mazel. Thank you all.
First of all, let's just give him another round of applause. Excuse me. I just want to say, as a girl that has a unique name, such as Najaya, that was very heartwarming to hear that. So now we will take our another 5-minute break until our next speaker. So thank you. Apologize. It is actually now 3 minutes until our next speaker. So yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. So please find your seats. So our next speaker is Shireen Thor. She is a comedian turned coach who expresses herself through hope and humor, sharing stages with icons like Serena Williams and Prince Harry. She empowers women and people of color through her best-selling book, Revolutionary Women. Shireen has been featured on Forbes, TEDx, Spike TV, and more. Shireen's impact resonates far beyond the stage as she champions equity, purpose, and happiness for all. And finally, Shireen would like to give a special shout out to her husband as they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary yesterday. I know, that's amazing. Ah. Come on, Miss Shireen.
Thank you. You better call Tyrone. I just had to. Destin. It was so good. You might want to cut that out for the TEDx video. It's awkward to start. Okay, you ready? You ready? Let's go. So, as they said, I wrote a book to empower women and dedicated it to my daughter. When my son was old enough to read, he picked it up, read that dedication, and was like, Mom, what about me? It's very interesting when you become a parent. There's a lot of struggles you do not anticipate. The first one was the baby weight. I just couldn't get it off. And I did what any rational human being would do. I signed up for a weight loss reality TV show. It was put on by Jillian Michaels, and there was a bunch of teams, and the objective was that each team was competing against the other to lose the most weight over the course of a month. Every team had one woman, one man, and a trainer. My trainer was this cool dude who did a combination of soccer and dance as part of his training. Two of my favorite things. I was very excited. So I showed up training one day, and my teammate, the guy, was like, I'm so pumped. I've been weighing myself every day. And I was like, oh, I haven't weighed myself at all. Am I being a slacker? And my trainer was like, no, it's actually really good because stress affects men and women very differently. And I was like, tell me more. He said for a man, when he looks at that scale, it pumps him up and makes him want to work harder. For a woman, when she looks at that scale, if it doesn't measure up, if it doesn't kind of reflect positive results, then it'll stress her out. Her body will secrete cortisol, and that will create belly fat. So it actually is counterproductive for her to be measuring as much. So I was like, all right, let's just keep it moving. So we did 2-a-days, we ate a meal plan, it was a whole vibe. After the course of an entire month of working out like a beast, I lost 20 pounds, and we won. I won $5,000. Thank you. I really do appreciate that applause. It's exactly how I felt. I was stoked. I was like, man, and it was such a good win, and I really needed that win because for a long time, after I had my first baby, I went undiagnosed with postpartum depression. I didn't know I had it. I did know I was struggling. My sweet partner, who we just acknowledged for our 10-year, hey, he saw it too. 4 weeks out after giving birth, was having suicidal thoughts. I just struggled. And I kept trying to positive talk myself out of it. I was like, we're gonna be all right. Yes, we're gonna focus on the positive today. And then I'd be good one day. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm not depressed. And then the next day, I'd be like weirdly sad for no reason. I'd be really weepy and super emotional. I didn't understand. And then the next day, I'd be like Incredible Hulk, like road rage behind the wheel. I was like, I don't know what's happening. So I'm grateful for the intervention from my partner because he finally sat me down and was like, sweetie, let the struggle be over. I think there's something else going on. So we actually tried to start to rehabilitate me, acknowledging finally that it was postpartum depression. I got a therapist, started taking care of my physical health better, my mental, my emotional health. And what I really needed to do was sort of put myself higher on my own priority list. And so we did that. And as I started to rehabilitate myself and come out of the fog of this depression, I remember just having this moment where I was like, wow, like I actually can't believe that this is what women have been going through since the beginning of time to bring life into this life. Like it was just so much harder than I thought with the sleepless nights and the actual pain of birth and the postpartum phase. Like there was so much sacrifice, pain, struggle, just like hard work. I was in shock. And one day it just occurred to me out of nowhere. I just remember having this thought. I was like, wow, I can't believe that we were all born of women, and yet we all move on and live in a world where we oppress the very women that gave us life. And that really hit me hard. In that moment, I feel like it's maybe like the first time I started to call myself a feminist, right? Sort of understand what was behind that word. It's crazy. So one of the most important things I needed to do to rehabilitate completely was to measure myself through a new lens. The masculine gaze, they call it, right? Through the lens that I had used, I was measuring myself based on how much income I could make, how productive I could be, how much output I could produce, and how attractive I could be. So when I was at home, snuggling my newborn, feeding, bathing, caretaking, I couldn't see it. I couldn't measure it in a way that made me feel valuable. I had been so inundated with our cultural norms that I felt worth less in this phase of my life. Now, after I did rehabilitate, I put on a new lens. And I started to really see that not only was this phase valuable, but that it was incredibly important, that I was helping a tiny new human feel safe so that their nervous system could fully develop, so that when they became an adult, they could go out into the world as a fully whole human being who could contribute to society in a positive way. through this lens, I could see that what I was doing was not only necessary, valuable, but also beautiful. And as a result of putting on a new set of glasses, I can stand before you today and say confidently, on behalf of myself and all the women in the world, to society, I say, you're welcome. So this is really what led me to write my book. I just wanted to help other women put on that lens to measure themselves more accurately. The current workforce was made by men for men. I would never pledge a fraternity. That would never stop hazing me. So I decided to become an entrepreneur. It allowed me opportunity to unplug from a toxic work environment I had worked in, where I was undervalued and underpaid. I was able to create a business where I got to do my thing how I wanted to, in my way, on my terms. And right now, I make 24 times the hourly rate I made back then. I also make a full-time income working part-time. Now, anyone wearing masculine glasses is gonna say, she lazy. But I would say I cracked the code, right? I have so many clients working full-time wish they could work part-time. I'm so burnt out. It'd be great if I could just work part-time. Entrepreneurship gave me a space where I could work in a way that kind of honors how I operate, rather than trying to conform to the typical standards of working. I don't measure men by how many babies they can make. Nobody? So it's only fair that I don't get measured on how much I can work in the way men work. So entrepreneurship was the solution for me, but it doesn't necessarily fix the problem. The problem is that our society's value system is skewed towards the masculine gaze, how they work, how they lead, and the pay gap is just a symptom of that problem. If I focused on entrepreneurship as the solution, it would be similar to going to the doctor and having them write you a prescription to treat your symptom, but never truly healing you so that you're actually healthy. Research says it's much harder for women to get funding for their business ideas, even though they are more trustworthy borrowers. Women have a credit gap of over $1.4 trillion. So entrepreneurship is a workaround, and I liked it as a workaround for myself, but it doesn't necessarily cure our society's sickness. Society needs a new lens through which to value its members. A lens that values humanity over output, and a lens that values women as much as men. The gender pay gap is typically viewed as a woman's issue, but it is not. Not only is this unbalanced value system costing our daughters, but it's also costing our sons. Closing the pay gap in employment could raise long-term gross domestic product per capita by nearly 20% on average across countries. This problem is compromising our country's economic performance, and we need to collaborate in order to fix it. So let's close the gap. Let's raise the GDP. Let's bring more humanity into the way we work and live. Right now, we are in an unprecedented time with the introduction of artificial intelligence. What used to take 9 hours of work can be cut in half easily. If we continue valuing output over humanity with those old glasses we used to wear, then we would take all that newfound time freedom and just shove more work into it. Harvard Public Health did a study that found that people who suppress their emotions are 30% more likely to experience premature death by all causes and 70% more likely to be diagnosed with cancer. There's 120,000 preventable deaths a year in America due to work-related stress. We live in a very sick society, and it is literally killing us. There's a quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti: "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." AI is a powerful tool that gives us a unique opportunity to correct our course, but it won't fix the problem for us. I literally just flew on a plane. I was doing a keynote in the UK, hopped on a plane, boom, and now I'm here. Technology is incredibly powerful, but you need more than just technology. Technology is a tool. What you need is a destination and a pilot. So when it comes to AI, I would say our destination could be a healthy, balanced society where women are valued equally alongside men. And the pilot's you and me, us. This may feel like a pipe dream, but there was once a time in ancient Egypt where men and women lived together in harmony and unity. They valued each other's unique contributions, and they did not even have computers or robots to help them. Women in Greece would go to Egypt so that they could attend medical school, because they were not allowed to attend medical school where they lived. And after graduating, they would go back to Greece, disguise themselves as men so that they could practice medicine. It was very common for ancient Egyptian religion to edify the feminine, which is why women were highly respected, and in some cases would even come to rule like kings. They had greater societal standing than many women in other societies, both ancient and modern. So I'm here to say to you that if it happened before, it can happen again. It's not a pipe dream. We can get back there, and I believe AI can help us do that. So this is my invitation to you today. If you are a woman, I invite you to remove the ways that you have disguised yourself as a man to fit into this sick society and find ways to honor who you truly are. If you are a man, I invite you to see women through some new glasses and really value their incredible, unique contributions that only they can make to your life and the lives of the people we love. I invite all of us to stop competing and work together in collaboration to fix this societal issue and bring us closer to a destination that resembles that of ancient Egypt. And I remind you that you are the pilot of your life. And it's each of our lives that makes up society. And I ask, finally, that you work less and live more and find ways to allow AI and technology to kind of pick up the slack. There's a really great quote by Buckminster Fuller. You can never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. When I think about that new model, I see that the future is incredibly bright. I see more room for life in your life. I see fair compensation for both men and women. I see women's ideas being financed as often as men's. I see the GDP being raised by 20%. I see more support for new mothers and more time off for growing families. I see a society where the word mansplaining is obsolete, one where my daughter isn't disempowered for being a girl, and one where my son isn't threatened by her success because he knows that they're on the same team. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen, for your vulnerability and just sharing your experiences to help us take off the lens and see life through a different perspective. And so now, who's hungry? Is anybody hungry? Thank you. I know you're hungry. Me too, girl. So right now we're going to take our lunch break, and we're going to go through the doors to your right, and you're going to go to ballroom B, and that's going to be on your right-hand side. And there we'll have our buffet-style lunch. See you in there. Oh, wait, guys, before you go, can we please give a round of applause to all of our speakers who just spoke? Yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Also, guys, don't forget to take your pens. I think there were pens on your table. Take your pens with you over to the lunchroom. Thank you.
Hey. All right, everybody, can we get settled down into our seats for the second portion of the TEDxUKY talk? All right, how was everybody's lunch that went to lunch? Good, good. Well, I hope I apologize. We are now moving on to our next speaker, introducing Joseph. Joseph is a principal AI engineer and ethical hacker. He develops AI features at a SaaS security startup, AppOmni, and finds security vulnerabilities in major companies through his bug bounty work. Please give a warm welcome for Joseph Thacker.
What if you could push a single button and find vulnerabilities in any website or take over anyone's bank account? It might sound insane, but it's not far from reality. There are AI systems today that can autonomously find vulnerabilities in websites or applications without any human help or guidance. Let's dive into the world of hackbots and how they could revolutionize the future of cybersecurity. When I talk about hacking, what do most of you imagine? Probably a guy sitting in a basement with his hood up, typing on a computer with like 6 different screens, and that's mostly accurate. Me and my hacking buddies love wearing hoodies, and we also love having lots of screens. Now, for the context of this talk, I'm talking about finding vulnerabilities in websites and applications. And for ethical hacking specifically, that's done in order to secure those systems. So when the vulnerabilities are found, they're reported to the company so they can go in and fix them. Unethical hacking, on the other side, would be if it's done in order to steal money or steal people's information. Ethical hacking is a really crucial part of the current cybersecurity landscape. I've been ethical hacking for over 5 years and have submitted over 1,000 vulnerabilities. I've had database access to Yahoo, the ability to take over Capital One accounts, remote code execution on Alibaba servers, as well as vulnerabilities on Amazon, Apple, Google, and other big companies. The cool thing is that those companies will actually pay you for those findings through what's called their bug bounty programs. It's called bug bounty because vulnerabilities are often called bugs, and they pay you a bounty per vulnerability instead of being paid per hours or per job. Those bounties can range anywhere from a few $100s all the way up to $50,000 or $100,000 per vulnerability, depending on the severity of the bug, the company you're reporting it to, and whether it's done as a part of a live event or a promotion. Personally, I love bug bounty because I get to hone my hacking skills, all the while getting to have fun in what feels like a video game. And then on top of that, it's helping secure things. And so there are some things in life that I feel like are win-win, but bug bounty feels more like win-win, win-win-win. And for the companies, not only do they get like a security assessment would traditionally be a few hackers for a few weeks. With bug bounty, it's hundreds of hackers looking at their scope around the clock. And as you can imagine, those large financial incentives mean that top hackers, talented hackers, are always going to be trying to do bug bounty. They can set up scanners, they might be manually hunting. And so that makes the security of these programs much more secure. As hackers will report bugs, then the developers will go in and fix it, and then that's a cycle that continues, such that the security gets really, really strong at those companies. And I say all that not just because I'm passionate about bug bounty, clearly, but because it sets a very high bar of security to be able to find vulnerabilities in these companies that have had long-standing bug bounty programs. It takes top-tier bug bounty hunters. And in the context of this talk, that's important because if there were ever an AI system that could find vulnerabilities at those companies, it would be a significant achievement and mark of validation for the industry. And that's what recently occurred. But before we talk about it, let's go back and see how it happened. Over the last 2 years, as large language models like those that power ChatGPT have kind of taken off, they've even become synonymous with AI in general, even though AI is a much broader field. And so those large language models are basically models that have been trained with a large amount of text, like cramming all the internet into something much smaller that you can talk to, kind of like you would talk to another human, in order to tease out expertise and information. And they've shown a really strong competency, not only at like code generation or content creation, but even generating TED Talks. I'm just kidding. But as far as the cybersecurity industry goes, the biggest way that they've been making waves is through what's called hackbots. Hackbots are AI systems that can autonomously find vulnerabilities in websites or applications. Hackbots use large language models, or at least some of them do, in order to tap into that security and hacking expertise, in order to help make decisions about how they work. Last year, even though there are some experts that are pretty skeptical about whether AI can actually hack, I made a claim back in November that AI hacking agents will outperform even human hackers eventually. And that claim was validated 2 months ago whenever there was an official research paper that dropped showing that LLM agents can autonomously hack websites. So what oversight do other people who are skeptical or other experts that don't believe AI can hack, what oversights did they make? I think the biggest oversight they made is that you can actually allow AI systems to have control of specific tools or utilities. And specifically, I think the best example would be if I asked you if AI could move through the world, you would maybe say no, right? It's a file or a computer program. But what if you hooked a large language model up to a robot such that the LLM could give commands to the robot to move through the world? Then maybe if you assigned it a task to walk across the room, it would reply with something like this: move forward 10 feet. And now all of a sudden AI is moving through the world, right? It's very similar with hacking. So you give these AI systems the ability to call hacking tools in the same way that a human would and run them in order to find vulnerabilities. And then if it finds them, it's able to store them off and report them later. The current landscape of the hackbots that are out right now, at least the public ones that we know about, it's very likely that there are also some being built by three-letter agencies or other governments or other countries. But of the ones that are in public, I've been able to kind of peek behind the curtains and see how they work, and I've even connected with a lot of the team members that are building them. And it's really fascinating because they're coming at it from different angles. So there are some teams that have kind of set forth and started with making the AI systems find vulnerabilities in the code that humans wrote. Whereas other ones are working more like manual hackers, where the AI systems are trying to hack things in the same way that I would whenever I'm going to do bug bounty hunting. Even though it's right now, they're still in their early phases, I think that we'll see them scale up due to those financial incentives from bug bounty and from the fact that they can both offset and augment human hackers. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. That hackbot, the best one that kind of went over that bar, found vulnerabilities on Apple and PayPal. Both of them are extremely hardened, they're very secure, they've had long-standing bug bounty programs, but these hackbots were able to fully find vulnerabilities completely autonomously without any help or intervention from the hackbot maker. And then they were able to write the report explaining the vulnerability, why it's important, and how to potentially fix it. And the hackbot maker was paid thousands of dollars for those vulnerabilities from Apple and PayPal, and that makes a significant breakthrough. I think that hackbots are really exciting and really cool because they could potentially secure the entire internet. And I'll talk about two ways they could do that. One is through the way that code gets written internally at these companies, right? Any website or any application that you all use today has developers who are writing that code. That code is generally beta code before it goes online and is exposed to everyone. Hackbots can be put in the middle. They can test that code, find the vulnerabilities before it goes live onto the internet where attackers could find it and exploit it. But not just at single companies. What if we scaled this up and ran hundreds or thousands of hackbots against every website on the internet? They would be able to find basically all the vulnerabilities that they were able to find with their current skill set. And then we would be drowning in those reports. And we could go in and fix all of those. We would only be limited by the ability of developers and programmers to fix those vulnerabilities. And that's one thing that AI is going to really help with too. It's already shown to be a competent coder. And there are lots of other companies already building products that do go in and fix code. So we'll be able to go in and fix that code as well. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some limitations and ethical considerations, right? The biggest limitation is the cost. These large language models cost a lot to run, especially whenever they're being used for a long period of time, like hours and hours or days and days to find these vulnerabilities. And those hackbot creators have to pay that cost. For example, the Apple and PayPal bug I mentioned a minute ago likely cost that hackbot creator hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just to run it long enough to find those vulnerabilities. And obviously right now that offsets some of the costs you could get from the bug bounty. And maybe more importantly, as many of you all have heard, with great power comes great responsibility. If there are, as these systems become more and more sophisticated, if they were to fall in the wrong hands, they could be used for malicious purposes, like attacking critical infrastructure or even scaling up to cause large-scale harm. But despite all that, I'm still super hopeful about the future of the hackbot industry, and I think by collaboration between governments, researchers, and companies, that we'll actually be able to harness the power for good. Let me ask you this: what would the future look like if people, companies, or governments were able to push a single button and begin to find vulnerabilities in anything? And how long do we have before that will actually occur? But most importantly, will we harness those hackbots in order to secure the digital space, or will they fall into the hands of evil or wrongdoers and be used for harm? Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for Joseph. He did amazing. All right, so now we're transitioning it on into our second activity, connections and conversations. So I hope you've enjoyed the conversations and ideas shared on this TEDx stage so far. We are almost at the end of the TEDxUKY, and we want to ensure you leave this room with a memorable experience. Not only because of what you heard today, but because of the connections you've made here. So let's take a moment to meet who's sitting next to you. For the next 5 minutes, take some time to talk to your neighbor. And if you haven't already, turn beside to the person beside you, smile, and introduce yourself. Just a brief introduction. Name, what you do maybe, why you're here. Additionally, there will be a list of questions on the screen about some things we've seen today, so you can share your thoughts and learn from each other. So let's trailblaze together, one conversation at a time. Y'all ready? All righty, let's go.
All right, everybody. Did you all learn a lot about each other during those conversations? Yeah? All right. Well, our next speaker is very near and dear to my heart, and I am so blessed that I can say that I know him. He is a man who walks the life that he speaks about day in and day out, and he has worked so hard for this moment. So, with that being said, our next speaker is Nigel Marcellus Taylor, a PhD. Yeah. Uh-huh. He is a PhD candidate here at the University of Kentucky. He is a creative who is known for his roles as a talk show host and the author of a children's book, Endless Possibilities with Nora and Vincent. Do y'all have a book? 'Cause I got a book. Y'all got a book? Okay. With a background in producing uplifting content, creating safe spaces, and public speaking, Nigel is passionately committed to leaving a positive impact on each life he touches through his work. Please, please, please welcome to the stage my dear friend, Nigel Marcellus Taylor.
Let's go. Thanks, you. My mom used to tell me to take the chicken out the freezer when I got home from school. I am my parents' only child, so I couldn't blame anyone else when I didn't do it or tell somebody else to do it. It was all on me, and best believe I forgot to do it all the time, y'all. I'm not here to get into what would happen when I forgot to do it. Just know my mom did not play, and you can use your imagination. What my mom didn't know is why I forgot to take out the chicken. I felt like it was a valid reason. I was watching TV. Now, before you take my mom's side, I get it. It's not an excuse, it's a reason. But what was so worth watching to catch smoke from my mom? Daytime talk shows. Before I was old enough to stay home by myself, I used to watch daytime talk shows with my Nana growing up. It was like clockwork. She picked me up from school, we would go home, she'd turn on Oprah, and I was supposed to be doing homework. At first I was hating because I didn't want to watch Oprah, but I'm gonna tell you something. Actually procrastinating homework will make you a fan out of everything. Sooner or later it became our thing. Those memories meant so much to me, and I really cherish those moments with my Nana because, again, I didn't have any siblings. At first, I was astonished by how much she loved Oprah, but soon it made sense to me. I mean, Oprah was amazing. She inspired millions of people, brought people together, held meaningful conversations, and she helped so many different people. I mean, you guys remember that infamous line, "You get a house, you get a car." I remember my Nana used to joke and be like, "Yo, those people in the audience don't deserve that. We deserve that." Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. We started watching probably like 7 seasons in, but hey, we did deserve it. Those moments truly define my aspirations in this life. I used to dream of having an impact in a platform like Oprah, because deep down, I was silently hurting. What my Nana nor anyone else in my life knew is I was struggling with a deep sense of loneliness in this world. Being an only child wasn't easy for me. I used to feel so alone, and every interaction with people always felt like do or die. I used to ask myself, what can I possibly do to make people remember me and want to be my friend for long term? But it felt like no matter what I did, it didn't work. I always felt like the second choice friend. I wasn't the person who people considered first. I was the one who people would just kind of assume would show up, be there, or he was already invited. When I was in 4th grade, I remember my neighbors were having a party. We went to the same schools growing up, so we all knew the same people, and they were all at that party. I remember watching them play outside from my window, but I didn't want to go outside because I was never formally invited, so I didn't want to intrude. I so desperately waited in hope that somebody would just knock on the door and say, hey, can Nigel come out and play? But no one did. You see, that loneliness birthed a deep feeling of unworthiness within me. And I felt like just being myself wasn't enough. If I wasn't perfect, the best, or doing something so extraordinary, nobody would care. If I wasn't the best student, the best athlete, the funniest, the smartest, the coolest, the flyest, people wouldn't see me. And you know, I fell short of that often. So sooner or later, I wrapped that feeling of loneliness and unworthiness around me like a blanket. And I told myself, people in my life are gonna come here today, gone tomorrow. Everybody's in my life is seasonal, and the only person I can trust is myself. Whether it was family, friends, whoever, they were all going to abandon me. And at the end of the day, all I had was myself. People often talk about abandonment as somebody physically leaving, but I always felt like my form of abandonment was people emotionally leaving me. And all I had in this world was me, myself, and I. I can't lie to y'all. That brought me to a very, very dark place that I didn't often speak about. At my absolute lowest, I had a friend named Savannah, she has such a beautiful heart. Through talking to her, I found out that she attempted suicide because of her own loneliness. The only thing that saved her was this idea that God would be mad at her if she saw it through. You see, loneliness has a way of helping you understand that line of despair, not just for other people, but for yourself. I thought about her often. I thought about how that could have been me. But what helped me distinguish between the darkness? Vulnerability. It seemed like whenever I was vulnerable, people would remember me or they would want to connect with me more. I didn't have to go too deep into what I was feeling, just enough that surprised people about the death of an emotional Black man. What was even more surprising is whenever I opened up, it felt as if people would just heal. They would feel better. They wouldn't feel as alone. And a light bulb sparked into me. I told myself, I'm gonna make it my mission to turn my pain into purpose and do everything I can in my power to make sure that nobody felt alone as I did. And guys, it was working. I mean, I started a student organization here at the University of Kentucky that was based in making students feel like they belong on this campus, which just celebrated 10 years on campus. Thank you. I wrote a children's book to tell all children, but specifically Black children, that anything that you do in this world, all the possibilities are endless, and you can do it. You just gotta keep trying. Just to be able to do a book tour for that book and go to schools from kindergarten all the way to high school to look those kids in their face and say, you matter, your dreams matter, you are worthy, you can do it. To creating a podcast that allowed multiple people to feel seen, heard, listened to, and so many more things I don't even have the time to tell y'all right now. But guys, it was really working. Or so I thought. No matter what I did, who I met, what I accomplished, I couldn't escape that feeling of loneliness. I spent so much of my time trying to make sure everybody felt comfortable, just to realize I never felt comfortable the whole time. How is it that I felt so lonely? I mean, I have people who love me, who invite me out to things, who consider me, who check on me, and yet it felt too good to be true. You see, the funny thing about vulnerability and opening up with different people is I was starting to recognize patterns for other people that are in a similar space. I know a girl who is so deserving of a safe and healthy love, but anytime it presents to her, she runs away and goes back to toxicity. I have multiple cousins whose heart call out for them to live out their dreams and their purpose, and yet they settle for their situation or the job that they don't like. And then there's me, someone who is so deserving of a genuine connection, but found every reason to push people away. What do we all have in common? One word: familiarity. Guys, let's face it, the unknown is scary. And we try our hardest to try to control what we don't know is going to happen so we can mitigate feeling hurt or disappointed. We use our past as if it's some type of never-changing final grade to measure who we are, who we allow in, and where we can go. But I need everybody in this room to hear me right now. Your past isn't a life sentence. We can't make the mistake of thinking that everything that is familiar to us is still serving us, is good for us, and is always protecting us. It's one thing to be familiar with joy and peace and love. But what happens when we're familiar with toxicity, chaos, loneliness? When we're familiar with joy, or when we're familiar with chaos, joy becomes fear. And things going right becomes we're going to start self-sabotaging. When we're familiar with toxicity, healthy and safe become boring. And we run away and go back towards chaos. And the reason why it's so hard for us to distinguish between the two is because it's so normalized to us. Look at me. Loneliness was so worthy that any genuine connection that I felt very unworthy. It made me feel unworthy. I saw every connection as being too good to be true. But the question is, was it too good to be true? Or was I too traumatized from my past to accept it? Our past tells us that there's a shortage in what we can achieve, but that isn't true. The life, the career, the love, the dream, and everything in between, it is all within reach. But first, you have to let go. When you let go of the expectation of what will happen, you allow what can happen to unfold. And that in itself can open so many doors for y'all. And then you just got to give yourself the permission to walk through those doors. Also, we have to heal from the narratives that we tell ourselves that perpetuate us into these cycles of not being able to open ourselves up to accept it. And I wish I could sit here and tell you how to heal, but that journey of healing looks different for everyone. But it is possible, though, guys. It starts with that permission. When I was in elementary school, I signed up for a school talent show. I wanted to make it a talk show, but I didn't know how to because, young. And I told myself, talk shows have performances, so you can sing. So that's what I did. You guys remember that 2001 Usher song, You Remind Me? All right, I need y'all to be with me. It goes, you remind me of a girl that I once knew. See her face whenever I look at you. That is all the singing y'all getting from me today. That's all. I was singing that. Man, I was just so excited to perform this song. I practiced hours on hours. I was watching so many R&B music videos. I told myself when I hit that stage, I'm going to stand like this. And when the song happened, I did stand like this. The song was playing, and as I was singing my little heart out, I was doing what every R&B artist would do in the moment. And y'all, I'm not going to lie. I bodied it. When I was done singing my heart out, I looked out to the crowd, and it was silent. All of a sudden, I heard, woo! woo, yo, people were standing up. I got a standing ovation. They were yelling out. They were screaming. And my little heart was like, oh my goodness, I made it. Now I'm joking. I didn't get a standing ovation, guys. I didn't get a standing ovation. But people did clap, and that's what's important. People clapped, and they said I did great. As I walked off the stage, and I was headed home, and my parents were taking me home, they were telling me how great I did. And in that moment, I told myself, I'm meant to be on stage. I'm meant to have a platform. I'm going to have an impact on this world. I knew it in that moment. The next day, I was excited to go to school. I knew my classmates are going to hear about it because some were there. And of course, the whole world knew about the kid who just bodied Usher in his song. So like, I'm famous now. So because I'm famous, I was like, yo, I'm going to bring my favorite crayon. It's broken, but a broken crayon can still color. And I'm going to sign them autographs. I got to school, and I saw my classmates huddled up, and I was so excited, y'all. I was sitting there like, yeah, they about to tell me I'm about to sign these autographs. But instead, they told me I did terrible. They made fun of me, and instantly my heart shattered. When I went home, I isolated myself in my room, and I told myself, you don't matter, your dreams don't matter, and you will never hit a stage again. As I look into this crowd full of family, friends, mentors, mentees, people who I love, as I'm aware that there's so many people streaming this right now, absolutely going crazy. My phone's probably blowing up right now. I'm looking at all of you guys and thinking to myself, imagine if I allow my past to be a life sentence. I would not be here today to accept all this love from all my people. And I wouldn't be here today to be able to share my story with you on this stage. Your past doesn't have to define you. You can heal from it. The way I healed was giving myself the permission to try and try and try again. My name is Nigel Marcellus Taylor, and I'm here to put the world on notice. One day, I'll be on a bigger stage, shining even brighter. Peace and love, y'all.
Well, guys, for everybody that knows Nigel, we know how far he's came, and so we just want to say that that's my brother right there, and he did an amazing job. Yeah. He definitely spoke life into everybody's future and spoke life into their present self. So I'm really proud of you, Nigel. Good job. Let's just give him one more round of applause. I'm sorry. All right, guys. Now to go on to our next speaker. Hannah Drake is an author, poet, and public speaker. She is the co-founder of Unknown Project, which works to unearth hidden names and stories of Black people who were enslaved in America and the global African diaspora. Hannah's message is thought-provoking and at times challenging. However, she believes that it is in uncomfortable spaces that change can take place. She says, "My sole purpose in writing and speaking is not to entertain you. I am trying to shake a nation." Please welcome Hannah Drake.
Thank you. Have you ever been in a rush to get somewhere and you are power walking your way through and somebody is standing right in front of you, almost oblivious to the fact that you even exist, and they are just taking up all the space? Well, one day I was in the airport, and it was one of those miraculous times that I was not in a rush. So I stepped onto the rolling walkway, and there was this sign that said, "Stand to your left and walk to your right." Since I was in no rush, I just stood to my left, but behind me, I could hear someone approaching me very quickly. So I moved over a little bit more so that whoever it was could get by me. And in a few seconds, this woman comes down the rolling walkway with her rolling suitcase behind her, and she is running as fast as she can. And in front of us, there was a man. He wasn't standing to his left or walking to his right. He was standing in the middle of the rolling walkway. Now, I wanted to see this woman pick up her suitcase and leap over this man in a single bound. But instead, she just stopped running. She waited until the rolling walkway came to an end. And he went in one direction, and she started running in the other direction. I had a connecting flight in another airport, but that interaction stayed with me. I wondered why this woman wouldn't just tap him on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, I need to get by." But even more, I wondered what made him think that he didn't have to follow the signs, that he could just take up all the space. I sat down to get lunch, and I remember I was at this counter. It was an empty counter. All the seats was empty, and I sat down to have my lunch. And here on the other side of me comes a man. And normally in that situation, I would just collect all my stuff and just leave. If he wanted the space, that was fine. I was okay to leave. But I thought about that woman on the rolling walkway. And in a split second, I made this decision that would impact my life. I just decided I'm not going to move. If he wants to sit here while I eat my lunch, that's perfectly fine. But I'm not giving up this space. I have chosen to sit here, and I deserve to sit where I want to. A few seconds passed, and without saying a word, he simply left. And I thought, oh my God, is it really that easy? I could just decide to show up in spaces and hold my space, and it is okay. I thought about all of the times that I whispered when I wanted to shout, when I was refused to just stand in my space, where I stayed silent so that I didn't stand out, when I moved out of the way before others could tell me to just get out of the way. I remember one day I was in church, and this woman approached me, and she said, "Are you Hannah?" And I said, "Yes, I am. How did you know that I was Hannah?" And she said, "I asked somebody how I could find you. And they said, Hannah will be in the back. Hannah's always in the back." And when I thought about my life, I did, in fact, live this back burner existence, because nobody had ever told me that I could enter into spaces as if I belonged there. How I felt is not without precedence. Throughout history, there have been laws to dictate how Black people can navigate spaces, even how they can navigate the sidewalk. There was a time in this nation that Black people were expected to step off of the sidewalk to allow a white person to pass. According to Dr. Ronald Davis from California State University, Jim Crow laws were created for Black people to have racial etiquette. And I decided on that day that I was going to be like Rosa Parks, somebody that defied those laws when she refused to give up her seat on the bus. I decided that I will no longer be invisible, I was going to step onto the proverbial sidewalk. I am here. And what if people could have the courage like Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat, or like Shirley Chisholm, who said if they do not have a seat for you at the table, then you bring a folding chair? Or what about artist Frida Kahlo, who said, I used to think that I was the strangest person in the world. But then I thought, there are so many people in the world that surely there is someone that is just as bizarre and flawed as I am. And I imagine that those people are thinking of me. And I hope that they see that I am here and I am just as strange as you. And that day in the airport, I was so tired of just giving in. I decided that I was going to hold my space, and I felt so incredibly empowered. And I wanted other marginalized people to feel the way that I did. So I wrote this blog called Do Not Move Off the Sidewalk. And I challenged marginalized people for 24 to 48 hours to not yield their space, to stand in their space on the sidewalk, and to make note of how often they were expected to yield their space first. And let me be clear, this was not an act of being rude. There are times that you must and you should yield your space. This was about marginalized people, particularly Black people and people of color, to be cognizant of how they take up space and to think about how many times they give up that space because they feel that other people are more worthy of being on the sidewalk. The response to that article was overwhelming. Over 1 million people read that blog. It was translated into Spanish. People not only did the challenge in the United States, people did it in Mexico, London, Australia, Canada, and India. And then the responses came flooding in, and it was hundreds of responses. One man said that he is over 6 feet tall, and every time he enters a grocery store or a restaurant, he feels that he must wave to let people know, I come in peace. Another woman said that she was 56 years old, and she is a big, curvy woman, yet still she can remember stepping off the sidewalk. Another woman was doing field research in India, and she said, in India, we do not have the issues that America has with race, but we do have caste here, and I have found that upper class men will take up as much space as they want. She found it sad, although she said, I am not surprised that the same issue exists in America, although it exists on racial lines. After I read all the responses, I came to see that the geography didn't matter. It didn't matter whether it was race, class, or gender. Marginalized people will typically always yield their space to people they think, or that society has told them, is more worthy. But who gets to determine if you are worthy or not? Whose permission are you waiting on to step onto the sidewalk? I remember my daughter actually attended this university, and she was walking on this campus with her friend, and her friend stepped off of the sidewalk to let another group that she deemed more worthy pass her. And my daughter pulled her back on the sidewalk and told her, you are worthy. You are worthy of taking up space. Do not move for anyone. That is the power of holding your space, having the courage to hold your space. You open up the door for others to step into who they are. It gives other people the courage to know that they have a right to be in these spaces, to have a seat at the table, in these spaces, to have a voice, in these spaces, to have influence, in these spaces. That is why I chose to stand on the sidewalk. And it is my prayer that one day all of us will be able to step on the sidewalk and navigate this terrain together. But until then, I challenge you, do not minimize, do not shrink, and do not step off the sidewalk. You are here and you belong here. Thank you.
Let's give Hannah another round of applause for that. Very, very, very amazing. All right. Thank you to all of our amazing speakers for sharing their stories with us and for paving new paths for generations to come. Before we conclude, our core team member and licensee, Deb Penna, would like to give a speech. After her speech, we will welcome you to stay around to network and connect with the speakers, those around you, and your TEDxUKY community. Welcome Deb Penna on the stage.
First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for coming. Organizing a TEDx during college was a huge dream of mine, and I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot of effort. But the best compliment that I was ever given by a close friend of mine is that I'm someone that can transform dreams into objectives. Put it on paper, make it an achievable goal. And when I was first planning this event, many people said that they didn't trust it. It's too big of an event to do in not enough time. And they discouraged me and they were like, you should not do this. But I'm passionate about it. And I'm passionate about sharing ideas. So I was like, I think I want to at least try my best and figure out that it didn't work out if it doesn't. And then somebody pulled me to the side and they gave me the best and the worst advice that I was ever given. That they said that when somebody tells you no, I should, 1, listen to them, and 2, control my expectations, settle down, control my excitement. They said that I wouldn't have enough time to find quality speakers, I wouldn't find the sponsors, it's too big of an event for something that has never been done before by a single student. And they were right, so I listened. I listened to all the reasons why TEDx shouldn't happen, but instead of believing them, I found an organizing team to help me solve all the problems. And although this might be very counterintuitive, they really helped me. Because when you're aiming high at something, I think the most challenging part is exactly to recognize what the problems are and anticipate the problems before they actually happen. And that's exactly what they gave me. So I knew exactly where I should start. So I wanted to ask you guys here, because I'm sure everyone here has something they would love to happen, like a high dream, and they would be like, oh, that's probably not really gonna happen, but it is the first thing I would ask for if I had like 3 free real world wishes. And if you know exactly why that's probably not gonna happen, you're done. You know the problem, solve it. And if you can't solve the problem, find people that can help you brainstorm to solve the problem with you. And honestly, that's kind of what I'm looking for now, because I need people. Because now that my organizing TEDx in college dream happened, I gotta move on to the next one in line. That is for it to be a tradition. So I want TEDx to be something that's gonna happen every single year here at UK that people know about, with an audience that's increasing and increasing and a team that's increasing. I want it to be something stable and constant. But for that, we need people that trust in the project. And if I'm hoping that there's at least going to be someone there in the audience, one or two people, either you're a staff member, a student, a speaker, it doesn't matter, but someone that really trusts in the idea, and you're like, I want to help this in the future. I want to help you organize. Or I'm really hoping that there is someone there that hated the events, and they know exactly what to do better next time. So after here, we're going to move to another ballroom, the same one we had lunch. And we have a quintet waiting for us. They're going to play some live music. We can just chat for a little bit. And please speak up if you want to help us. And on the feedback form, that's on the things you have on the table, there's a QR code at the end. There's also a question asking whether, and if you say yes, we will reach out to you. But I'm not going to lie, many times the organizing team would tell me, like, oh, this problem came up. How can we solve it? Like, what can we do about it? And I answered probably more times than I should let the audience know. I have no idea, but we're going to figure it out. And we need people that are excited enough to help us figure it out, because some people might have not trusted, but the College of Communications did, and the Honors College did, and College of Arts and Science, and Nursing, and Alumni Association, and MLK Center. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. But more than all, people in the organizing team really struggle to make it happen. And you guys have no idea how thankful I am that I found you. So I think that's one of the things that I'm really looking for. Mark Twain once said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I'm someone that I usually ask myself, not whether I should do something, but I ask myself why I shouldn't. And if you have something you're aiming high at, and you know why that's probably not going to happen, and for you that's the reason why you shouldn't go after it, I would invite you to look at it with some new lens. Because if you think your dream isn't for you because you know why that's probably not going to happen, recognizing the problem is valuable. We've just seen people sell the problems they find. Sometimes that's even more valuable than actually the solution. So if you think it isn't for you, make it be, develop the trait so it is. And some people may discourage you. Everyone's going to have a predetermined idea of who you are and how you're going to handle things, maybe even just based on your name, maybe based on past experiences. But your past isn't a life sentence. So you might as well be the person that can get where you want to get it. And if you're buying all that I'm saying, because you're like, oh, I'm in university, I have time. Sorry, but no, you don't. As far as we know, you can become paralytic at any moment. So you owe it to yourself to value your time, and that is an art. So position yourself, hold your space, make it happen. If there's one thing that I want everyone here to live with today, is with enough excitement to transform your dreams into objectives, and to create your own pathway, and to blaze your own trail. Thank you.
Can everybody stand up and give them a round of applause? The organization team, the creative team, this is their first time partnering with TEDx. They started the way. They are trailblazing the way for this to be continued. And we just want to thank you all so much for a great evening. Well, great afternoon. All righty. To conclude the afternoon, we would like to welcome on stage our final performance of the day, Wildcat Wind Quintet, a student-run musical group consisting of Dominic Luce playing Dominique Luce playing oboe, Grace Hughes playing the flute, Carson Kitts playing the clarinet, Kyla Stevens playing the bassoon, and Eli Retatif playing the French horn. We are proud to give them the space today to present their talent as undergraduate students at the University of Kentucky. Please welcome the Wildcat Wind Quintet. Hey guys, just one more thing. You all don't have to sit and watch. You all can just now get up and converse while they play some kind of exit music, all right? Thank you all so much for coming out.